Playing a violin that's out of tune will not only ruin your sound, but it's going to make learning the instrument so much more difficult. So learning to tune your violin and taking time to tune it before every practice session is one of the most important skills a beginner violinist can have. Tuning a violin is one of the first things you should learn. And if you've never done it before, it might seem difficult. And if your teacher offers to tune your violin for you, it might be really tempting to just hand it over and let them do it for you. But the problem with that is that if you don't figure out how to tune your violin on your own, then you'll probably be playing on an out-of-tune violin all week until it's time for your next lesson. At the end of this video, I'm going to give you one bonus tip that you should always do after tuning your violin, which only takes seconds and is going to keep your violin in great playing condition. Hi, I'm Michelle, the Intentional Violinist, and this channel is all about sharing what I've learned through experience and research as an adult learner of the violin. We're going to cover using the two most common tuning aids in use today, the tuning app on your phone and the clip-on tuner. So let's talk about the clip-on tuner first. It uses vibrations from the instrument it's clipped to determine if you're in or out of tune. So it's not picking up any vibrations from other instruments or general sounds from the room. And that's really great if you're playing in a noisy setting or if you're in an orchestra and multiple people are trying to tune their instruments at the same time. Depending on how wide the clip area here is, you can either clip your tuner onto the scroll of the violin, or you can clip it onto a peg like that. And then there is usually a little button that you can press just to turn it on. Probably hold it down for a sec. And then every tuner is going to have some different options that you can change. So this one is set to 441 hertz. 440 hertz is the most common, probably for beginning violin students, but your teacher might want you to play on 441, or you might prefer the sound of it. And there's some others, but those are pretty much the most common ones. So you can set your tuner to that frequency that you want to use for tuning. So with the tuner on your violin, you're just going to start bowing on a string, and it's common practice to start with the A string. You're going to have a band or a line showing if you're in tune. If it's left of center or moving left, then you know you're flat. That means that you need to turn the pegs away from you, as that's going to increase the tension and raise the pitch. But if the band or line is right of center or moving right, then you're sharp. And so in that case, we need to turn the peg toward us to decrease the tension on the peg and lower the pitch. We're aiming to get the line or band dead center, not moving in any way. That's when we know our string is in tune. But what if you have a fine tuner, or two, or four? So it's going to work the exact same way, except instead of turning the pegs, you're going to turn this little knob on the fine tuner here. And it works the same way as the adage, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So if the line or band of the tuner is going left and you are flat, then you want to tighten the tension on the string to raise the pitch. So we're going to turn the fine tuner to the right. But if the band or line on the tuner is going to the right, then we are sharp and we want to lower the tension on the string to lower the pitch. So we're going to loosen it by going counterclockwise. So now let's talk about tuning apps. It's going to work pretty much the same way, but there's a little bit of differences when you have a tuning app on your phone. Because your phone is not directly touching the violin, tuning apps pick up sounds from the room. So you definitely want to be in a quiet environment where you're the only one playing and tuning when you are using a tuning app. You can see that this app works similarly to the clip-on tuner, giving us a line or band that's moving to the left or right and telling us how to adjust to get our string in tune. And when we're in tune, it lights up green. In addition to having the moving band and lighting up green when we're in tune, the tuning app also tells us what the frequency is, which is in hertz, because that's the measurement of frequency. When we're playing on the open A string, we're trying to match the frequency setting we chose for our tuner, whether that's 440 or 441 hertz. But when we're playing on open G, D, and E, the frequency is not even close to 440 or 441. And that's because all notes have different frequencies. And 440 or 441 only matches our open A string. You don't need to know all the frequencies of the other strings to tune your violin because the app will show you if you're flat or sharp by moving left or right or lighting up green. But if you want to know what those other frequencies are, then I'll put those up for you to see. You'll notice that the frequency varies whether or not you're tuning to 440 or 441. It's not very different, but for example, if you're tuning to 440, your D string is actually tuned to 293.66. But if you're tuning to 441, your D string is tuned to 294. And why is that? Well, it's all about the fact that the pitches are tuned relative to one another. And I'm going to have a whole nother video on understanding tuning and frequency, so I'm not going to get into that here. But you will notice that when you're tuning on an app that has these frequencies, you're never perfectly on the frequency of 440 or 441 or 294. You're always kind of going back and forth between a couple points either way. And that's okay because the frequency is actually being determined by how your bow is being drawn across the string, creating vibrations. And there's always a little bit of fluctuation with that. You can hear a little bit of fluctuation just from, an open string drawing the bow that way. So you're never going to get it perfect. And that's okay. That's why there's this big green band that's telling you, hey, you're there, you're good. One other thing you might notice on the tuning app is that the note has a small number beside it. And this has to do with the octave the open string falls in. This is helpful to know if maybe your violin became really out of tune. And maybe, for example, you're playing on the open string A and your tuner is telling you that you're playing an A, but it's a different octave than the open string should be. So the open strings on the violin are going to be G in the third octave, or G3, D in the fourth octave, D4, A in the fourth octave, A4, and E in the fifth octave, E5. After you've tuned your instrument, be sure to check the bridge to see if it's straight. And that's because as you tune your violin, especially if you're having to turn the pegs this way, you are pulling the strings this way, and it also pulls the bridge this way. So sometimes your bridge will actually be leaning forward some, and it looks like this bridge actually is leaning forward just a tad bit right now. So if that happens, what you can do is just place your violin flat. Make sure there's some cushion underneath your violin if it's on a table or anything like that, because you don't want to damage the violin. And take your fingers and just pull the bridge back just a tad and see if it's straight now. And then what I like to do after I've straightened my bridge, or if I didn't think my bridge needed to be straightened, I want to check anyway. I take a little piece of paper, a little square. This is just regular copy paper that I've cut into a little square. And I put the piece of paper underneath the feet at the front and the back. And I'm looking to see if it will slip underneath the feet at all, and it will not. So because the violin top plate is curved and the bridge is also curved to that exact position that it needs to be on the top plate, it's the slightest little bit that it will be off. A little piece of paper will be able to slip under. And if it's actually in the perfect place that it doesn't need to be moved at all, then this paper will not slip under. So that's a great test. And I would recommend that you do this every time after you tune, because if your bridge does start leaning and you don't fix it, especially because you don't realize that it's leaning, then your bridge can get warped. And when that happens, your tone is going to suffer. It's going to be harder to tune your strings. And eventually your bridge is probably just going to fall down and hurt your violin, because it can really make a big dent or bang or crack on the top plate if a bridge just falls down like that. So you'll actually have to have it replaced. And while it's not the most costly repair, it still isn't the cheapest. So if we can just avoid that by checking to see if our bridge is straight to begin with, then I think that's the best way to go about it. Playing a violin that's out of tune will not only ruin your sound, but it's going to make learning the instrument so much more difficult. So learning to tune your violin and taking time to tune it before every practice session is one of the most important skills a beginner violinist can have. Don't forget to tune. I'm the Intentional Violinist, and if you found this video helpful, the best way that you can support this channel is to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can join our community of intentional violinists. Until next time, keep practicing. Once your violin is completely in tune, play with your first finger down on one of the strings. Keep moving your finger around until the tuner tells you that you're on the correct spot for the note. Once you find the note, grab your sticker and place it on the violin next to your finger.